Hey there. So I want to take a moment to talk about my little microcosm of what's going on in terms of somatics and social justice and how these are linked. There's been a lot of questions that come my way and into the HoneyRoot community. Sometimes they come as questions, other times they come as concerns, and they're sort of around what does feminine spirituality and embodiment work have to do with social justice? Why has HoneyRoot been leaning into, or I'll even say just incorporating the social layer, the social political layer, as heavily as we have this past year and some past 2 years now? So it's simple. It just occurred to me. I would feel like it's irresponsible to have tools like the field of somatics has offered without making the link of how important these are to any relational challenges. So somatics is the Western, relatively recent in the field of psychology, field of study that has to do with how we occupy ourselves, how we embody ourselves, and what impact that has on how we feel about being a self, how we feel about being in relationship to others, and how we feel in being in relationship to the world that surrounds us. So it's basically how to play this instrument in a way that opens up possibility. Often what I see is that people feel limited, and then relationships fracture because they don't have the tools, the skills, or the energetic emotional capacity to be with what's occurring. And that's simple, right? It's simple, and it's a lifelong practice to keep expanding our toolkit and to keep opening up our nervous system in ways that allows more energy to move through so that we don't have to cut ourselves off from ourselves, from our heart, and from one another. So why is HoneyRoot orienting towards social justice, or again, incorporating the social layer into what we talk about when we talk about being a body? Is because as a woman, a big part of being a woman for me is being a womb holder, just in me, in my framework, in my psychology. And as a womb holder, I am the body that brings in all bodies in our species. I am the type of body that in my nature says yes to whatever body is going to come through me. I can also say no to having bodies come through me. But my system is built to bring through whatever bodies are going to grace us here. So as far as like identities and how people identify in terms of their sexuality, in terms of their gender, sometimes they can be considered preferences, but it's actually more comfortable for me just to speak to how people are put together and how they interact with how they're put together, leaving the mystery open to how all of that works. But as a body that occupies a uterus, that holds a uterus, as a body that has the ability to bring in other bodies of all different sorts. Of course, I pass on my genetics, but I have this creative ability to mix my genetics with those of another. So, because of that, my desire, my longing, and my need to have all bodies welcome, because that's what I'm up to, welcoming all bodies. I feel like it's our responsibility to be sharing the tools of somatics with anything that's coming up that is fracturing or creating friction relationally. Because I want all bodies welcome, and I don't live in the illusion that I will be able to live into that in my lifetime, but that is my deepest desire, a sense of belonging and a sense of welcoming for all bodies. And because of that, I will do my own personal practice to keep working my bias, to keep working the shapes that I've put myself into because of the privileges that have been handed to me, and because of the life experiences I've had that have created challenge in my body or trauma in my body, defensiveness and fear based on experience. Sometimes that experience is systemic, patriarchy, being a woman within patriarchy puts me in a certain shape in relation to the societal layer. Those shapes are real in my body, which means I will have certain ways of engaging with the system around me. So my work is to keep freeing myself from that and keep, doing the education pieces and sharing as I feel I can. And given that it is my desire for all bodies to feel welcome, I have to look at what is in the way. What is in the way in a HoneyRoot field, for example, the HoneyRoot community, of people feeling like they are not welcome, or that it's not a place for that they will feel belonging. What is in the way of that? Particularly what's been active for me is women in relation to women. And yet, it can't stop there. Any body that has been told it's less than in relation to the patriarchy, any bodies that have been dealing with oppression in relation to the patriarchy, that's been the focus. That's been the social political focus of HoneyRoot. And so whatever has been limiting us needs to be addressed. So part of what we, in some ways, bumped into, bumped sounds like it was so sudden, grew into, is to see that if there are people, whether they are people of color, whether they are otherly abled bodies, whether they are elderly, whether they are queer folks, if there are people that look at a place like HoneyRoot and say, oh, that's not a place for me, that's where our attention has to go, because there is a resource that we have access to, which is somatics, which is a laboratory for exploring what it is to be in this body in relation to other, in relation to the earth itself. There are tools and skills and practices that we have accessible to us that I feel a responsibility to share. If there are things that get in the way of people having access to that, that's where our focus goes. And that is not to say that we dream ourselves into thinking that we can offer this to all bodies, but that is our mission. Meaning, of course, there's limitations. There's financial limitations. There's the lack of experience or education in those facilitating. There's a lack of ability for people to travel to the places that we do our work. But whenever we see one of these limitations, we do our best to address it. Because it's like, if you know that you want to be a doctor, if you know you want to be an artist, and you see that there are things in your life that are actually going to get in the way of that as a possibility, moving towards that piece that is the limitation to your dream, and granted, it takes a lot of privilege to be able to actually shape one's life so that we're addressing the root of the problem or the thing that's in the way. But that's what needs to be done if you want your dream to come true. And if what my dream what my dream has been is for more people, every person, to have the birthright of having more of a felt sense of what is going on in their body, which is affecting how we're showing up in relationship, which is affecting how we feel in relation to the system. The land of of possibility that lives in the body. I want all people to have access. What's in the way of that? That needs to be looked at. And what has been a mission is I want all women to connect in and realize that if we work together, even if we have problems, even if we have challenges that we need to repair with one another, if we actually get hooked in as a system, you know, I know I'm not saying anything new here, but it brings such passion up every time I talk about it. Given that we are the connectors, no. Given that our feminine nature is about connecting, meaning all people, the feminine nature is that horizontal, is the connection. If you have challenge with the word feminine, you can let that part go. I'm talking about the part of us that is built to connect, the imperative we have to need one another and to be needed by another. That imperative has been fractured by colonization, the patriarchy, white supremacy, all of these systems that are set up to cut off and divide, cut off and divide, cut off and divide. Those systems are counter to my feminine nature. Counter to our feminine nature, counter to the part of us that is built to connect, that is connected. A birthright. Now, granted, these are big, big, big undertakings, and we as a community, I as a person, I'm going to stumble and bump and fail along the way, and yet I am clear of what the mission is, and I'm clear of what the dream is, and I'm clear that I would dedicate my whole life to it. And I'm clear that if I die trying, that's fine. Because that's probably what will happen. To have access to know what to do with our nervous system when we are fearful or worked up. How to be kind to ourselves when we are engaged in any situation that we feel is unjust, whether it's happening to us or whether it's happening to another that is standing beside us, or whether it's happening to someone as they're lying in a hospital bed, or whether it's happening to someone that we see on the news. In order for me to know how to utilize my body so that I can have an impact, that's a birthright that I want everyone to have. And I know that it takes an incredible amount of privilege, and I'm not talking about, you know, only financial or only racial privilege or only able-bodied privilege. I'm talking like all the resources, education, even education being because one person told us once when we were 5, and that is a privilege I walk around in, that I was told, I'm making this up now, that I was told that I could be whatever I wanted to be, you know. If that came into one's experience right at the right formative moment, that's a privilege to walk around with, because not everyone got that, you know. I didn't quite get that one, but I got a version of it that really was helpful. This is why we've been focused and devoted, because we must address the social layer if we are going to be welcoming, and if we are going to be a force, an entity, a group of people that support even one more person feeling a sense of belonging or a sense of connection to the ground, to the space that surrounds us, to one another. These resources of connectivity. If there will be one more person, or hundreds of more people, or thousands of more people that can have that experience, then it feels like a responsibility. The good kind of responsibility. The kind of like, I got this resource and I watch how people are suffering within as something as large as social justice efforts. And though I may not be as primed and experienced and as educated as many people are in the world of social justice, but particularly when they've been focused on it as an educator, which is different than being an activist. Even if I'm not up to par or I'm not up to par with them, what I do have, where my 10,000 hours does exist, is in the world of somatics, building resource in the body. And that doesn't mean I walk around having an easy time all the time by any means. I suffer. I hurt. How could you not these days? But I don't get into states where I feel like there's nothing left to do. Because I might be able to find the felt sense of blood running through my body, literally feeling it as a way to ground myself. I might know that if I slow down my voice and feel my back body, that within a few minutes my nervous system is going to calm down, as long as I'm in a safe enough environment. If I know that tuning into the center of my body, whether it be my solar plex or lower down in my belly, if I know that if I go there, that I am going to feel a sense of ability to set a boundary with love, that my heart can be online as long as I'm feeling safe within my own skin. And I know that there are lots and lots of environments that are not set up to help me, let alone others, with more oppressed embodied experiences, feel unsafe. The systems want us to feel unsafe so that we don't feel power. Simple, right? Fucking brilliant, gnarly badness. Make them feel fear. That will give them less power. Make them feel fear. That will generate more survival and defensiveness and fracturing. And I don't want that. I want connectivity, even if we choose to be far away from another body. It's not because they're doing something that doesn't belong. It's that that's the right distance where I can continue to feel love. So I hope some of that offers some answers to why a field that has been so dedicated to root specifically for women thus far. Women, saying this is a field for women has now become too limiting. Because all people, all bodies, need to know how to find their root. It's just that there was something important, there was something really important when the muses moved through me to help these womb holders know what they're doing here with these wombs. Help these people that happen to have big holes, well, sometimes very little holes, openings to the earth. Help them understand what that means to have an opening there. And then keep growing your ability to include. You come up into the womb, all bodies. And yet it's step by step, right? I mean, yes, at HoneyRoot we welcome the exploration of all bodies. And we even get into the pains and the glories within a binary of this man-woman thing. We look at where is that serving us at all as a culture? Where is there injury there that needs repair? And where are we actually just talking about what the Tao has been talking about? That there's energy that moves in different ways. That there's this yin and this yang, that's been translated into feminine, masculine. And that they have different purposes through one body. and different ways that they can move with another body and societally. You know, so really fleshing that out. So there are ways that we want to play with all bodies in this way. But specifically with HoneyRoot, if there are people that don't feel welcome, that need a place to feel welcome, and they are a woman, non-binary folks, trans folks, we're ready to keep sharing the tools, the skills, the environment itself that just does something when we come together. That's probably where most of the magic lies, actually. There's so many gifts that somatics offers. And to leave somatics out of the social justice movement, from my point of view, is a real gap in our ability to heal. To know what to do with our bodies when we're communicating with one another in a way that brings healing and connectivity. I want all people to have access to our birthright in that way, to know how to conduct our bodies. Yeah. If you've listened to this, if you've received this, if you've taken the time with me here, I'm so grateful. If you have questions or comments, I'd really love to receive them. I've been in a really, really challenging year. And whenever I have these moments where I actually feel like I have something to say or something to contribute, it's really nice to be in relationship with them. And I'm thinking of doing a post sharing more about the personal ride I've been on, in case you're interested. I know I've been kind of underground in some ways. But we all do what we need to survive certain moments. I'm grateful that you've taken this time, and thank you.